While talks of the demise of the dollar are ridiculous, the decline of the dollar, in just terms of its valuation, might be real.
You can debate whether or not you think that that means the dollar is losing reserve currency status. Here's a hint. It's not. But there are a set of companies that we think could be big beneficiaries of that move that nobody's looking at. Don't sleep on these potential companies.
Let's talk earnings and favorite pastimes.
So let me just say, earnings
liquidity
why
of Wall Street.
it's
Why did they do it?
because their compensation goes up.
Wall Street's wrong again. Since Trump came into office in January, one big trend that everybody's been talking about is everybody wondering with, tariffs disrupting the global economic ecosystem and everything else, is the dollar losing its domain as the reserve currency of the world? And, is the dollar going to tank? And we've been seeing it, right? I mean, look, the dollar has dropped since inauguration. I think it's, 8 to 10%, right? It was, when you look at the DXY, so the DXY, everybody, is a specific basically blend of all of the other currencies that generally interact with the dollar to basically have a weighted average of how the dollar's value is against those. If it's falling, which is what's been happening since inauguration, that means that the buying power of the dollar is dropping. When it's rising, it's been up. And so when you look at that, right, well, you can see, hey, everybody's worried that this is going to happen and that we're going to, lose more. Just for context, in Q1, right, for all of Q1, the dollar was basically at 107, right, in terms of where it was relative to other currencies, and now it's at 99. And that has people worried, but there's a specific group of companies that we think could benefit from it. But Joel, actually, it's more important thing. Is this a reason that we need to worry about the dollar losing its reserve currency status?
No, the dollar's reign is not going away just because of this kind of volatility. This is just, first off, the dollar has risen against all the currencies by like 46%. Right. And the companies that Rob is going to talk about have been having a very hard time of it because the stronger the dollar gets, the more these companies can't make money. Right. Even if they're doing a great job of making goods, fulfilling customer needs, getting to the customer, branding themselves, customers buying, they're still losing simply because of the currency loss. So one could argue that the dollar maybe got a little too strong over the last many, many, many years, and that maybe taking a little off the top, a little 8% shave isn't the worst thing in the world and is going to help a bunch of companies heavily. The second thing is the amount of transactions that are settling in dollars years ago was, meaning just around the beginning of the pandemic, was 8%. Now it's pretty much double that. The world is dollarizing. The world is dollarizing, not de-dollarizing. I don't think people understand that. Now, that doesn't mean that every single company out there isn't saying, hey, it'd be nice if the dollar got a little bit weaker for all kinds of reasons. But saying a fall in 8% is the end of the dollar, right? It's like when people see the stock market fall 8% and go, oh, the stock market's done. The U.S. stock market's over. It's similar to that, right? This is 8% correction, and maybe it'll correct a bit more. And frankly, for the companies Rob's about to mention, maybe it needs to. One more comment just to say, if anyone was in doubt that, what was the comment that it was a multipolar world of various currencies coming to power? That is a bunch of BS. I can't even begin to think that. Just look at the crypto world, the most advanced, right, DeFi, non-government driven thinking world. And crypto, every stable coin settles in US dollars. Why is that? Why does every stable coin settle in US dollars and not in yen, not in BRICS? Not in the Brazilian real, not in the Russian ruble, not in the Indian rupee, not in the China renminbi, because nobody trusts those currencies as much as they trust the dollar. And when you have a purely DeFi world that says, what do you want to settle in? The crypto world settles in dollars. They do.
Right.
Otherwise, every stable coin, 99.99% of stable coins settle in dollars.
Mm-hmm. And right, and to your point, Joel, right? I mean, the person who said that idea of like, oh, we're going to a multipolar currency world. I think that was the head of China's central bank. So a little bit biased, but so everybody, for context, the reason why we're focusing on this and why we drew the line for Q1 and Q2 and highlighting where the dollar index was in Q1 and Q2 is, as we talked about, there's a group of companies that could be a big beneficiary of this. And those group of companies are companies that actually sell stuff internationally but repatriate to the US. So if you think any company that makes a lot of stuff that's based in the US but sells a lot of stuff internationally, what happens is when they repatriate that revenue and profits to the US and the dollar has fallen in value, that means the value of the revenue and the net income that they've generated outside the US goes up. And so for the last couple of years, Joel, to your point, being a multinational and selling internationally has been tough. But right now, we actually went through our database and we said, let's find some companies that could be potential beneficiaries as we see this reset. Because there's something that Wall Street, for some reason, has an innate inability to comprehend, and that is the impact of currency adjustments on earnings from a quarter-to-quarter basis. For whatever reason, you can look at this year in, year out, quarter-to-quarter. If you've got moves in the US dollar relative to other currencies, it almost never gets picked up in analyst estimates. And so what happens is you'll get surprises, right? Positive surprise if the dollar is getting weaker, negative surprise if the dollar is getting stronger, that everybody goes, oh, that's great, and the stock can pop because of it, no matter what else is going on. But so what we did is we went through all of the companies in our database that are US-based, over $10 billion market cap, so big material companies, and we looked at them on two variables. The first variable we looked at them on was how much of their revenue is international revenue, right? And how much is really focused on being international. And the second thing we looked at is we said, how big is the pricing dislocation, how much the stock is mispriced in the market right now? What we basically looked at is we looked at what is the company's true profitability return on assets going to be this year, forecasted to be, and what is the market pricing it to be in the next few years. If the dislocation was big, that means market expectations are low. So as we said, basically, let's find companies that could have positive surprises that the market already has low expectations for. And we found 20 companies that we said were really interesting, right? These companies are everything from, QSR, which is basically Burger King and everything else, to Warner Music Group, all the way down to big companies like Dell or Merck even, and even some smaller companies that you don't know. And if you look, right, what we're basically saying here when we talk about the idea of potential future profit mispricing is for a company like Warner Music, right? Warner Music might have a 100% return on assets, and the market's pricing it to be 75%. So the market expectation is already low. If it just positively surprises, we could see a big move. Now, there is one company on here that I would just like to highlight, Cheniere Energy, that they have 84% of their revenue internationally. Here's the thing. That probably, we left it on because we want to talk about it. That's probably not a good example of this theme that we're talking about here because Cheniere, they sell LNG, right? Liquefied natural gas. So when they get paid, they probably get paid still in dollars. So it's kind of a wash. But for all these other companies, these are really potentially interesting companies that if you're just saying, hey, what are companies that might have a positive earnings surprise the market isn't pricing in, you should take a look at. And then we got 4 other ones that we'll quickly highlight. These were not in the top 20, but these are other big ones and other companies that we thought were interesting that could be ones to pay attention to. eBay does a ton of international revenue, and they have actually a decent dislocation in terms of pricing. Ingersoll Rand, company at the heart of the supply chain supercycle. They make industrial equipment, and they're going to be selling more industrial equipment, including internationally, as people build more data centers and everything else. They actually have big revenue that could be a positive surprise, and then Medtronic and Akamai. So we just wanted to highlight really, really interesting companies that could benefit from this re-leveling of the dollar that the market may not be pricing in for you to check out. All right. That's everything this episode of Altimetry Authority. If you like this and you like this kind of research, hit the like and subscribe button and leave us a comment and come back for next time. Everybody, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.